Hello and welcome back everyone to PKIdeas for another tournament reflections video. This time around we'll be looking at the Australian National Championships, the second round. As we looked at it before, we looked at the first round where we versed Mike Canfell and unfortunately the game ended in a draw. This time around we'll be looking at my game against Elliott Renzies, a fellow Melbourne chess player. And I've known Elliott for quite some time. I used to live in Melbourne about 12 years ago when I first came to Australia, and lived in Melbourne for 1 year and then moved over here to South Australia and Adelaide. So without further ado, that's the basic introduction. Let's get straight onto it. So Elliott Renzies, he was white. So the game started off with the first move being e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, cd, c3, dc, and knight takes c3. So this is the basic Smith-Morra gambit. As far as I'm concerned, there are only 4 chess players in the whole of Australia who are aggressive, who have the Smith-Morra as part of their repertoire, and who get really good success rates. The Smith-Morra works perfectly for them because they see all the patterns in it and they see the attacking capabilities and the possibilities. However, if an amateur person or a club player starts playing the Smith-Morra, it means that they don't necessarily understand the opening fully. They just like doing the gambits and the attacking possibilities that come. But if they do not know how to continue the attack, the Smith-Morra is pretty much redundant. So knight takes e3, e6, the best move in the Smith-Morra against the Smith-Morra, bishop to c4, and now a6. So here what you've got is a sort of granite-like structure once again against this bishop on c4. The bishop on c4, usually in the Smith-Morra, if one plays d6 instead, is really powerful because the f7 square becomes really weak. So here a3 was played. a4 is the main move that they usually play. After which knight g to e7, h4, knight g6, h5, knight g to e5, knight takes, and bishop to a2, bishop to c5. So a3, knight g to e7. This is a novelty according to the engine, but as you saw in the previous game between Kamsky and Draken, knight g to e7 was the move played in that line as well after a4. So let's continue. Castles, knight to g6, rook to e1, and now I play b5, pushing away the bishop. Bishop to a2, and now bishop to e7. Bishop to e7 is important right over here because of the fact that the knight can come to d5 and start creating threats and attacks. So the bishop has to be on e7 just in case, as well as creating an escape square for the king to castle. So bishop to e3, castles, h3, bishop b7, and knight to h2. Knight to h2, I wasn't really sure about what the purpose of the whole move was. Probably to bring it out to here, but doesn't really do much, to be honest. So queen to c7, I'm developing other pieces. Now that my rooks are connected, it means that I have developed all my pieces, and this means that I can start with my own attack. But here, Elliott makes a massive mistake. He just plays f4 straight up. So after f4, knight takes f4, then the game is pretty much over because I just want a pawn. Queen to g4, knight to g6. When you're ahead of pawn, you don't necessarily have to continue the attack, but rather you can just stabilize yourself and make sure that there aren't any other threats that can happen in the position. So after rook a to d1, knight c to e5, queen to h5 was played, after which bishop to c6. Once again, I'm using the bishop to try and guard and stabilize the position. Before it was the knight when the queen moved to g4, but this time it's the bishop and it's on the queen side. So bishop to c1, a5, I'm starting my own attack now. Now he plays knight takes b5. Now, after knight takes b5, what I play is bishop takes b5, knight to g4, knight takes g4, h takes g4, and I play queen to c5. In this position, I have already been up material, so there's really no point for the queens to stay on the board any longer. If I swap off everything, it means that I have obviously an extra pawn. So I have an extra pawn and an extra piece. That is a definite win going into the endgame. So bishop to e3, queen takes h5, g takes h5, and I play knight to e5, defending my pawn on e7, on d7. So he plays bishop to f4, and I just play knight to d3. And unfortunately, more pieces are going to come off the board, which means that the win will ultimately go for me. So in this position, Elliott could do nothing more but to resign. And that pretty much is the shortest game that you will ever get from me in this tournament. So that concludes the game. If you are looking for things to learn, the main thing to learn about this is pretty much about the opening. The Smith-Morra is a really, really good opening if you know 100% how to play it. If you do not chicken out in the middle and start playing passive moves. You cannot afford to play passive moves in the Smith-Morra. Now, there are players that play the Smith-Morra and are really good at it. There are players that play the Smith-Morra that are really bad at it. Those who are bad just lose a pawn and the initiative goes to black. But those who are good at it lose the pawn and nearly all the time get the win for it. Another thing to also learn is that whenever you win material, you do not have to continue the attack. Once you win material, you can just hold back, evaluate the position again, see where you're at, and see if the same plans that worked before are going to work still. After that evaluation, that is when you will have to maybe develop a new plan or continue with the original plan to try and win the game. So I think that's pretty much it from me in this video. If you guys liked the video, please go down below and press that like button. If you didn't, just dislike it. I mean, I just want to know your opinion, to be brutally honest. And if you haven't already, please do press the subscribe button. So with that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time. One thing.